Good afternoon. My name is Thandie Mwape, Villetsen. My names come from Zambia, South Africa, and Denmark. There is your unity in diversity through my names. I'm going to speak to you following up with what Pierre has spoken about on the role of humanitarian diplomacy in humanitarian and development sectors. Diplomacy has indeed evolved. It is no longer a domain for governments alone. Local communities, we have seen in the videos, are at the front line of risks that emerge as a result of conflict, of climate change, ecosystem degradation, and sometimes disasters from development malpractices, sometimes a combination of all these factors. This obviously makes it expedient that the knowledge and the interests of local communities are at the core of global policy debates and policy development. At the same time, though, I think we all recognize that local communities sometimes lack the resources, the time, and capacity to sometimes engage in these global processes, and sometimes even within their national boundaries, they lack the opportunities to be part of decisions at national or local level. Humanitarian diplomacy operates in this void by stepping up and informing policy debate on local realities to influence how policy development takes place at national, regional, and global level. Humanitarian diplomacy strives to translate global international agreements into operational strategies and programs that are felt by the people that it matters to most, the people in need. In the morning, we heard the UN ISDR, Paula, speak about the Thandie Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. The Thandie Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which was agreed on by global leaders in Japan last year, for example, takes priority 1 as a focus that we should all be looking at in terms of how we must understand risk by ensuring that traditional, indigenous, and local knowledge and practices complement science in terms of looking at disaster risk assessments and in development and implementation policies and strategies. We are having a little film festival this afternoon, and I would like to ask Alfonso to kindly go to the video link so we can just see why humanitarian diplomacy is important, not only, I think, at higher level events as this, but why it matters for communities in their villages, in their local communities. Alfonso, please.
We use the traditional indicators. We found a good degree of accuracy in it. And it corroborated, it agreed with the scientific, from what I personally find out as a scientist. The farmers in that parish of Amero appreciated it. At least I heard them themselves saying that, what you told us, we're able to plant accordingly, and we got something. But those people of the other village, you never got that information or took it light. They were not part of that program. Missed out.
The project incorporated ecosystems management and restoration using biorights approach and wetlands management.
Nai karitasi ikiganga kente doa. Aloto man ke tolu, angine tunganan edo piting ke tonkan. Aloto man ke tonkan, abutoria mangine tunganan aloto man ke tonkan, abutoria ma peikine.
The project has worked with communities and the local governments in the 6 districts to come up with bylaws and ordinances on environmental management, wetlands protection, tree cutting, charcoal and bush burning. Linkages have also been established with the various technical knowledge and research institutes to train farmers in climate change technologies, conduct research, and provide drought-tolerant and quick-maturing plant varieties. The institutions were Ngeta and Abuin Zadi, Nasari, Uganda National Meteorological Authority, Lira and Soroti sub-weather stations, and Makerere and Chambogo universities.
Lakini apana ka to dikini betele di pereng dia oge ka da ko pala kala kanege na ito kana dialogo ngara kente ka kal angolo da ni ngolo ngola rutoria ngo nya ka ya ngolo sie arkona ani akartas no ngila gba ka tam ka odona.
During the implementation of the project, key lessons were learned.
Community involvement and participation is paramount in whatever we do. Approaches have worked. That is the lesson I'm learning. They may be small things, because from the beginning, when we were starting with this, I was a bit reserved. But now I see things are working.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's something very positive that demonstrates how policies that all of you policymakers are responsible for developing impact communities at the local level. The video you just saw on Uganda exemplifies the ambition that I spoke about on what humanitarian diplomacy is about, where you see academia working closely with local communities and local governments to value the use of traditional knowledge to complement science and strengthen the abilities of local communities to understand climate and climate change, use that information for better planning, for early warning, for preparedness, as well as to adapt to the implications and impacts of climate change. They're also using traditional knowledge to be responsible world citizens by protecting their ecosystems. This is just one of the examples. The organization that I work for, the Netherlands Red Cross, and the alliance of 5 other organizations that I represent, who are funded by the Dutch government, are also actively influencing policy discussions at global level. We are keenly following and influencing how the Sustainable Development Goals are implemented, the Climate Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, and of course, the newly adopted New Urban Agenda on urbanization and the linkages between urban and rural. In all these processes, of course, mayors are indeed at the front lines of directing and guiding these implementation strategies. Currently, in Asia, the Partners for Resilience Alliance that I represent, the country teams have established dialogues with their national governments in Indonesia, in the Philippines, and in India to identify critical issues on disaster risk reduction, on policy, investments, and practice, on how all these things interlink to impact resilience, to strengthen it, and also to correct trajectories that sometimes cause risks to communities, especially when development goes wrong. A similar process is taking place in Africa, where our Africa team is working with communities and local governments to prepare for the Africa Ministerial Conference that will take place in Mauritius later this month. Again, mayors play a crucial role in how all these policies make a coherence in implementation. Only last month, we were part of the Global Parliament of Mayors in The Hague, which were apart from that was discussing how we can use the mayors' offices to advance better our work on disaster risk reduction. In Partners for Resilience, we value the role of humanitarian diplomacy because we strongly believe that it has the ability to connect global and local, as well as local to global dynamics. These are the strengths that give us the voice to speak about policy at global level because of the evidence that comes from the communities Again, the communities that face the risks, the communities that have to benefit from the programs we implement on resilience. Humanitarian diplomacy must play a role of brokers of change that link global realities to local debates and global debates to local realities, to be sure that there are tangible impacts in the way we design our programs, in the way we implement our programs, but also in how we advocate for funding on resilience. We play a role to identify platforms where local voices can be heard and where they can participate as valued partners and not just as helpless beneficiaries of aid. Next time, I do hope that one of my local partners will be here to stand before you and deliver this speech themselves. In humanitarian diplomacy, we facilitate partnerships for sustainable and inclusive investments that respect social contracts between businesses and communities. Again, advocating for the fact that development must not cause risks, but indeed contribute to strengthening resilience of communities. In diplomacy, we ensure that there's advocacy for increased investments in risk reduction approaches, in risk reduction initiatives that span across humanitarian, development, and environment sectors. We therefore see humanitarian diplomacy as a crucial role that not only influences decision makers as yourselves at the highest levels of bureaucracies, but also that we take the global debates back to the communities, again, where it matters most. This, for me, is the thrust of our work in humanitarian diplomacy, that we connect the global policy debates happening here back to the local communities, and that the local voices can be heard in platforms as this to impact better how we program and implement disaster risk reduction initiatives. I thank you for your time.